Hi everyone. In this video I'll be talking about the dark side of spirituality and the New Age and what I call 2.0 gurus as well as the false light. And the reason why I'm going to talk about this today is because we are currently really experiencing a huge collective shift, and this shift is really happening in all areas of life, including spirituality. So we are really invited to let go of old beliefs and all that no longer serves us, to let go of the past and to move forward now into the future. And this is why we're currently experiencing also this entering in this new spiritual paradigm, which I will be talking about in a different video because I cannot talk about everything at once. So in this video I'm really going to focus on the old spiritual paradigm. Since the dawn of time, humanity has incorporated a lot of different spiritual belief systems, spiritual truths and knowledge that would come through men or women that would act as a bridge between the spiritual realm and the earth realm. And of course, spirituality has already shown its dark side, let's say, through religions, because spirituality has structured itself around religions, and so religions were really there to create a controlling system, a very dominating system, and also a dogmatic system that was not very aligned with the ultimate truth, let's say. Today, religions are dying, we are all witnessing that, and with them there are all kinds of old spiritual systems and all kinds of spiritual beliefs that are also dying, crumbling, collapsing, whatever. And among this old spiritual paradigm, there's also what we call the New Age spiritual movement. So the New Age movement finds its origins at the beginning of the 20th century with the Theosophism. So it was a mix between Hinduism, Buddhism, and esoteric knowledge, with figures such as Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, or even Jung. And this New Age movement really started to flourish in the 60s with the Peace and Love movement. But it's only starting from the 80s and 90s and then 2000s that it really gained a lot of popularity, and it started to grow very rapidly and very largely. So the New Age movement is very eclectic. It includes really all the positive aspects that you can find in different religions or spiritual traditions, and it puts man back in the center of his spirituality through different approaches on self-development, self-awareness, and it also includes paganism, so all the link with the Mother Earth, shamanism, and the New Age movement really wanted to be the spiritual movement of the Age of Aquarius, let's say. And not everything is to throw out away with the New Age. We shouldn't throw out the baby with the bathwater, like we say. So I'm not going to say you have to do this, but with the fact that the New Age movement has become so important and has become a huge business in the end, we are now witnessing today, we are now arriving today at a point of saturation, and the New Age movement is also revealing all its dark side, and this is pretty taboo in spiritual communities to talk about it. I was born in an atheistic family, so I was basically told that all religions are bullshit. And despite that, I always felt a very strong, deep spiritual connection, and I felt very close to Mother Mary and Jesus, and I couldn't explain it when I was younger. So very naturally, when I started my spiritual journey, I was very attracted by the New Age and everything that the New Age offered, because I discovered a whole new realm where I could choose, I could really tap into certain things that resonated with me, and I could leave aside what didn't. I could at the same time meditate, I could play with my crystals, I could learn about energy, about chakras, about anything. I was reading books on self-help books or spiritual books. I did yoga, I did shamanic ceremonies, and I could do that all at the same time, so it was wonderful. It was really, this discovery was really wonderful for me. And that is really the positive side of the New Age. So the negative side of the New Age movement is that despite the fact that we can tap into all this knowledge and all these different techniques, it all remains on a superficial level, because there are a lot of very attractive and positive concepts that are thrown into the New Age, And so we think it's very easy to integrate them, and we think it's very easy to move forward. But in the end, it actually creates this illusion that by reading 2 or 3 books, by doing 2 or 3 workshops or 2 or 3 shamanic ceremonies or whatever, we have become awakened beings, that we have understood everything. And so this actually helps to form what we call the spiritual ego. So the spiritual ego is an ego that thinks he is higher spiritually than the others. He thinks that he has understood everything, that he knows the truth, and that he has no lessons to learn from anyone. Or we become like spiritual junkies, and we are always looking for new teachings, new knowledge, always looking for more healing, and we can never get enough of it. So we can see that that's the pattern of the ego. So with the major shift that we're experiencing right now, there are many people who are more and more touching their light, but by contrast, there are also many people who are diving deeper into their shadow, and especially into the spiritual ego shadow, and deeper into the illusion, because there are many different layers of illusion. So I could say that from the identification to the 3D ego, let's say, we become identified with the 4D ego, which is the spiritual ego. And sometimes the spiritual ego becomes a narcissistic spiritual ego, and then we're really into trouble, because it's very hard to wake up from the illusion of the narcissistic spiritual ego. So I will try to highlight what no longer serves us in spirituality, and I will start off with the positive thinking movement that has created a lot of damage. So what is the positive thinking movement? It's a movement that tells you, that is based on the law of attraction, and tells you if you focus on only the positive, you will only attract positive things into your life or manifest positive things. But if you focus on the negative, then beware, because you are going to attract a lot of negative things into your life. So this is true to some extent. The law of attraction actually works like that. When you focus on something, then you are giving more importance to that thing, and then you have more chances to manifest it into your life. But the problem with the way it was taught is that it was based on fear. The fear of the negative. So it's like we are pushing away the negative and only choosing to focus on the positive and burying our heads in the sand. So what happens when we fear something? What happens when we push away something? Well, we attract exactly what we are afraid of. So when you focus only positively but without acknowledging the negative, then you are actually creating more negative into your life, because it remains on a subconscious level. So we are really invited to actually integrate this negative, integrate the shadow, and then we can focus on the positive, and then we can focus on love, and we can focus on light. But we should not be fooled by this teaching that tells us whatever you focus on, you are going to attract, because you manifest also very much from your subconscious, on the subconscious level, and I invite you to go see my video about that, about the law of attraction, where I get more into details about that. So of course this doesn't solve any problems, and it created a lot of damage. So now we can see, I've witnessed people who actually turn their back away to some of their friends because they're in pain and they're suffering, and they don't want to be present to them because that's focusing on the negative, and so they think that if they focus on the pain of their friends, then they're going to draw that into their lives. That's complete madness. So it's very much like, don't focus on the negative, because if you focus on the negative, then you will attract only negative into your life. So focus on the positive, and you will see you will attract only positive into your life. And you know, I know better than you, because my spiritual teacher told me that, and you don't know, you are wrong, and I am right. And you know, I read all the books on self-help and spirituality that exist on the planet, so I can only be right, and I can only know more than you. Calm down, spiritual ego. But you know, on a subconscious level, I really feel like a piece of shit, but because I don't want to look at the negative, I don't want to face my shadow, and I don't want to integrate my shadow. So what I will do is actually will project my shadow onto you, so I can still feel superior, and I can reassure myself that I'm really a high spiritual being, because I'm not aware that all of this is actually an illusion. Any resemblance with existing people is purely coincidental. Spirituality can also be used as an avoidance strategy, and there's actually a term for that now. We call that spiritual bypassing. So meditation is probably the most powerful tool for awakening and to find enlightenment, but meditation can also be used as spiritual bypassing. For example, if we feel a lot of anger, and because we are taught that anger is not good, a lot of spiritual teachers will say anger is negative, you shouldn't feel anger, etc., etc. What we will do is that we will actually go into meditation and start breathing and find this peace and this calm and this centeredness and push away the anger and repress the anger. And what will this cause in the end is that, when you repress something, you actually give more power to it, so it really doesn't solve any problems. We should really, when we feel negative emotions such as anger, we should really go through the emotion completely to be able to release it. So, of course, not lash out on someone or go hit someone, but maybe go outside and shout or punch into pillows or whatever. But we shouldn't use meditation as a way to avoid what we are feeling. Unfortunately, today there are many spiritual teachers who continue to fuel these kinds of beliefs, and they are actually trapped in the illusion of everything is an illusion. So they say, your body is an illusion, your anger is an illusion, your pain is an illusion. And I can assure you that as a therapist, if I were to say to the people I work with, your pain is an illusion, that would create maybe like 30 seconds of relief, just because they have this realization, but has never cured or healed anything whatsoever. So the fact is that a lot of these spiritual teachers, they have really touched, let's say, a higher spiritual perspective, which is the perspective of the higher self, of the soul, or the higher consciousness. So yes, ultimately everything is an illusion. That is not incorrect, that is actually the ultimate truth. But this doesn't mean that once you know that, you mustn't come back to the incarnation and to the human aspect and the human body. And this is why a lot of these spiritual teachers are actually using this higher perspective as a refuge to not cope, to not deal with all the pain and the human aspects that they still need to integrate. And so a lot of these teachers are actually almost like in a state of dissociation. And if you don't know what dissociation is, I will explain this more in detail in some other video, but to summarize, they are not present to their incarnation, they're not present to their bodies and to their human aspects. And so they never talk about their pain, they never talk about what happens, behind the scenes, because when they're on stage or in front of a camera, then you can only see the ideal persona that they embody. And yes, they are connected to this higher truth. But the problem is that the people, the followers, or the people who listen to these teachings end up being also in a dissociative state. And sometimes it can really become quite schizophrenic, because on one side they are taught that everything is an illusion, and on the other side they continue to feel their emotions and their pain or whatever. And so there is a gap, between the teachings and where they are and what they feel. So this is not going to solve any problems for them. And this is why a lot of people who are following these teachings are actually caught in a kind of bubble of illusion. The illusion of everything is an illusion, and they are not evolving, and they're more or less stuck. I am incarnated in a body, this is real. I feel an emotion, this is real. I feel pain, this is real. If I pinch my arm like this, I can feel the pinch, this is real. So everything is real in the end. And from the human perspective, from the incarnation perspective, we cannot say that everything is an illusion, because that would be like saying that dreams are not real, for example. We know that dreams are very real, it's just a different reality. So the problem with these people who follow these teachings, not only is there this huge gap between the teacher and them, or they feel this gap and they never seem to be up to their teachers, but they are also stuck on a hamster wheel. So from the 3D matrix hamster wheel, they are now stuck on another wheel of illusion, which is the everything is an illusion. And so they just inject spiritual morphine, and they're always in bliss and always peaceful and always in unconditional love, and they dissociate completely from their human aspect, and so their shadow aspect and all these emotions that need to be cleared, So the thing is, once we've integrated all these higher spiritual truths of, yes, from a soul point of view, everything is an illusion, we must come back to the body, and we must come back to the incarnation, and we must come back to the human aspect, because that is the path of awakening. That is the true path of awakening. It's to integrate all these different aspects. And these teachers, when they say, everything is accomplished, there is nowhere to go, there's nothing to be done, there's only to be, well, I'm going to ask them, what the hell do we need to incarnate for then? And the fact is that they don't understand that the incarnation, the fact that a soul chooses to incarnate, is actually what serves the expansion of the universe, and it serves the expansion of the soul. It's to experience the contrast and the duality, and also this, this kind of contract and deal, that when we come into this reality, we choose to forget where we came from, and the path of awakening is a path of remembrance of who we truly are. And that is what creates expansion of the universe. So it's the unique perspective that we chose that creates expansion of the universe. So saying that it's all an illusion doesn't lead us anywhere. And actually, I work with people through hypnosis. I do the life between live sessions, etc. And sometimes we see that a soul actually gets bored when they remain too long in unconditional love and in bliss, and they actually seek adventure. They seek expansion, and so they are very happy to incarnate. It's part, of the, the adventure of life. So really, we really must embrace all our human perfect imperfections, let's say, and we must come back to the body, we must come back to the emotions, we must integrate the ego, and we must consider everything like divine, because everything is divine. There's nothing that isn't divine, even the ego, even the negative emotions, etc. So now I'm going to talk about the more extreme cases of what I call the 2.0 gurus. So they are generally, self-proclaimed spiritual leaders. They have a lot of following. They have hundreds of thousands of people following them. They use modern tools like internet to gain more power and more wealth, and it all fuels actually their narcissistic spiritual ego. So I came across recently a video where they were selling workshops, promising people that in 3 weekends they would become enlightened, and the slogan was, if you come out of here and you still feel human, that means we have failed. Excuse me? When I saw that, my jaw actually dropped, and then there was this image of a person coming out of the workshop, and there was this fake, bliss on her face, and she was saying, I don't even know how I'm called anymore. And I was like, oh my god, this has really gone too far now. And then there are these other gurus that think that they are the ones holding the only truth, and they are the ones that are truly authentic, and they always use the word authentic. Every other sentence they use authentic, authentic, authentic. Did I mention how authentic I was? Well, what I want to say is that when you're really truly being authentic, you don't need to say it all the time. That's like power. When you are truly powerful, you don't need to show your power, you don't need to abuse of your power. And as a French alchemist who's called Patrick Berenstain says, a master enlightens, a guru shines. This means that true masters, they show humility. They don't need to rub it in your face, they don't need to feel superior in any way. And the thing is, a lot of these 2.0 gurus are actually controlled by reptilian entities, and I've been shown this in my dreams. And of course these entities have infiltrated the New Age movement. Why wouldn't they? They would be really stupid if they didn't, right? So it's done with the gurus. That's part of the old spiritual paradigm, and that also includes all the Indian spiritual traditions and all this folklore around the guru. So don't get me wrong, I also enjoy the Indian folklore. I think it's very funny, but there's no one that is superior to you. There's no one to be put on a pedestal. And actually, a guru has so much to learn from his disciples, So I will not be talking about channels, mediums, psychics. I've met a lot during my journey. I've met a lot that were awesome, and I've met a lot that had really, really big egos. So it's not because they have spiritual gifts or psychic gifts, you know, that they are superior to you. And actually everyone has these gifts that are not just fully activated yet. So what happens is that very often these people, they think that because they have these opened abilities, then they don't need to work on themselves. And this can create a lot of damage, actually. And what, you know, what is the most important? It's not the spiritual gifts or abilities. It's actually how heart-centered is the person. So it's extremely rare to find channels or mediums that have a really pure channel, because all the information that they get, it comes through their mind, and it is filtered by their mind and their belief system. So I've met really few of them that have a more or less pure channel. So also what we must understand is that when, for example, a channel channels Jesus, for example, they are not channeling the soul of Jesus not coming through them. What is happening is that they are connecting to an aspect of the consciousness of Jesus that is actually connecting to their own higher self, and that's what actually comes down, you know. And then it's filtered through their belief system and their mind. Except for the channels who can get really into a very deep state of trance, and they actually astral travel during the channeling, and I'm thinking about, for example, Daryl, Anka, and Bashar. But apart from that, there are also many mediums or channels that are actually gathering information or channeling negative entities, because like I've just said, they've infiltrated the New Age and spirituality. So of course these negative entities, they will, you know, try to fool them, and they actually try to appear as light beings like ascended masters or whatever. And what happens is that, for example, when I listen to someone who's channeling a negative entity, or when I listen to a spiritual teacher that is not in alignment, then I will start to feel nausea. So I really start to feel it in my body. So how do we navigate through all of this? Firstly, we must realize that the false light is more likely to be present through beings that have a dominant ego. And so people who are more heart-centered, they are less likely to be targets for negative entities or the false light. Then we must also see if the person is being really truly authentic, which means are they able to be really vulnerable, are they able to, you know, open up and speak about their pain, about their wounds and their human aspect. People who are not different in front of a camera or on stage and, you know, behind the scene when they get off stage. Truly awakened beings will not need to say that they are awake. It's like authenticity. And also avoid people who are like using, you know, a very unnatural tone of voice when they teach, just to seem more, you know, enlightened or spiritual or whatever. Avoid people also who feed your spiritual ego and feed their own spiritual egos. For example, people who will say, I know the truth and I'm going to take you to the path of enlightenment and blah blah blah. Or, you know, you are the reincarnation of Master Saint Germain or whatever. Just avoid these kinds of things. And choose people just who empower you and not people who have power over you. People who actually allow this inner power to emerge and don't create a kind of dependent relationship with you. So I myself experienced this deception in the past. It was a couple of years ago. I went through a lot of hardships and I needed some guidance, and at the time I had a very low self-esteem. I didn't trust myself. So I put all my trust into someone else, someone exterior to me, and I gave my power away to them in a way. And the day I realized that this person was a lure, it actually woke me up, and I understood that, wow, this is a huge gift actually, because now I can really go find this inner power, this inner guidance, and this inner trust inside me, and not rely on someone else and project and idealize someone in the way I did, because I actually realized that all of these things were actually inside me. So what I would suggest is that well, use your discernment, Follow your heart, listen to your intuition, and let just this inner power inside yourself emerge. Sat Nam.